Please join me in welcoming Professor Abhi, Provost and Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor of Genetics, Sunway University, to the stage. How are you doing, Prof? So a couple of questions for you. Tell us a little bit, we were talking with our 5 recipients about research and the importance of research, and sometimes it can be a very sort of scary, unknown field to enter into. Tell us about what your early research looked like and what helped you decide the direction you wanted to go in.
Sure, thanks, Deborah. I guess I was really lucky that my research really started at the opportune time at the start of the 21st century, the human genome. And so we started understanding how genes function and how that understanding of function can really affect the way in which cells behave and ultimately patient outcomes. And the whole experience doing my PhD at Cambridge allowed me to then really immerse myself with the latest technologies and the brilliant minds. And it's really quite gratifying to see after 2 decades, technologies such as cell-free DNA, immunotherapies are really changing patient outcomes. But when I returned to Malaysia, and this is about almost 2 decades ago, I must say, I'm very, very fortunate that my experience in University Putra Malaysia and also the leadership roles that I played within the Young Scientist Network of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia made me realize that science alone is not enough. And the reason I say this is because data, or research data, doesn't translate to action. In fact, it's not a fact. The way in which we look at it is really shaped by our biases and the different social lenses. And so as a result, I developed a greater appreciation of the importance of communication, policy, and ultimately education, because we need a population that, as His Royal Highness alluded to, is able to discern between disinformation and information. And that's where I started to focus not just on my own cancer research, but also in promoting effective science communication, policy, and ultimately education.
And how has that journey been, policy and education? Because it can be an uphill, I wouldn't say battle, climb.
Yeah, education, I guess, I'm very lucky currently at Sunway. We are, part of a not-for-profit Jeffrey Chia Foundation that allows us to really focus on education and just providing the best quality that we can do. And so, that is extremely gratifying, I must say, sitting down and listening to that amazing group of individuals and this year's grant recipients. Actually, I had a bit of an imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't think I was this accomplished 10 years ago. And so every year you're seeing that improvement. Policy, yes, it can be extremely frustrating, but I think it's also understanding that there are competing interests. And so the idea is, what roles can scientists like ourselves bridge that policymakers and societal gaps.
So you were saying you did your PhD in Cambridge quite a while back.
Yeah.
Makes us feel old. But tell us a little bit more about international exposure in shaping your own approach to research and leadership. And how do you see grants like the Merdeka Award grant helping bridge the gap between early passion and then that long-term national impact?
Yeah, I think it's very easy for us, being a relatively big fish in a small pond, and I think it's really important that we shed this jago kampung mentality. And I'm always reminded by what my Chancellor, Tan Sri Sir Jeffrey Chia, reminds us that to be the best, you not only have to learn from the best, you then have to work and collaborate with the best, and ultimately compete with the best. And I think that international exposure allows us to learn, the different methods, the new leadership styles that are actually out there, but most importantly, new perspectives, that there are, diverse approaches, but there is a universality when you think about the purpose. We all have that need to achieve, a particular problem statement, as our scientists have actually alluded to. And so grants like the Merdeka Award grant is extremely important, because I think it comes at a really pivotal point at many of our young researchers and emerging researchers' point of the career, where you're able to then bridge between the passion of an early researcher with something more tangible, sustainable, which is the long-term vision and purpose, grounded in the reality of the fact that we live in a world with limited resources. And I think that ability to reflect, to create a space where our emerging leaders can really grow, challenge themselves, but return home, not just with knowledge and skills, but a clarity of mission and vision on how they can play a role in national development.
Thank you. You make many valid points. Thank you. If anyone needs a mentor, you can get his number after this. So you've mentored many good talents over the years. In your view, what sets a great researcher apart from a good one?
Yeah, so a good researcher is somebody who does good science, and that's defined by producing results, publishing them, and ultimately also maintaining research integrity. And so really meeting expectations. But a great researcher sets themselves apart because they actually exceed these expectations. And how do they do that? They do that by, first of all, asking the most difficult questions, being able to take calculated risks, even if it means you fail. You know that you're still, searching for that unknown unknowns. But ultimately, I also believe that its ability to contextualize every research endeavor into a larger societal, planetary, and ethical context. Because understanding that your research doesn't end at the paper, but actually for that economic and societal good that you initially talked about in your proposal. And so for me, that's a professional responsibility of a great researcher. But there's also another dimension. I think for all of us, we won't be where we are if it wasn't for the mentors who deservingly or undeservingly gave us opportunities because they believed in us. And today, for example, I have quite a number of mentors here. Professor Dr. Asma, Professor Khadija, and of course, Professor Dr. Elizabeth Lee, who have given me so many opportunities to fail, to grow, to develop, to discover myself. And I think that's what a great researcher or great leader is. Somebody who actually realizes that their true legacy is not defined and certainly will transcend their own careers. The belief that actually I can mentor somebody smarter, bolder, and perhaps even more inspiring than myself.
Well, thank you, Prof. So those are the serious questions, a little bit of a warm-up for you. We're going to move on to a slightly more fun part now. So